Good evening, televiewers. Welcome to another edition of Prime on my Media Prime. This evening, we are going to be looking at what is happening in Cameroon and other nations as far as fuel scarcity is concerned. We know that the situation in Yaoundé has actually been very dire for the past days. What is happening? Where has fuel gone to? And is there the possibility for us to witness an increase in the fuel prices across the nation? Is going to be the focus for our discussions today. If time permits, we also are going to be looking at the visit to Cameroon of French President Macron, who is expected to come to Cameroon next week for a working visit with the President of Cameroon, His Excellency President Paul Biya. What are the possible things that they are going to be discussing as they look towards making the relationship between these two nations better? We are discussing this with our regular panelists who are in the house already. Apostle Ambe Valentine Ngwa is a permanent consultant. Good evening, Apostle, and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening, my co-panelist Fabrice. Good evening, Cameroonians, and welcome to today's edition of Prime Hour. Fuel prices on a hike. That's our challenge. Stay glued to your screen as we educate you tonight. God bless you.
We also are in the company of Fabrice Elena. He is the Secretary General of the PAP party. Very, very busy these days meeting diplomats as well as other political actors across Cameroon. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liu. I'm always happy. I'm always very delighted to be a guest in your program to rub minds, exchange ideas, educate, and also give our own opinion about issues affecting our country, especially the challenge of the fuel scarcity, which is the talk of the day and the talk of the nation these days.
Okay. We also are going to be awaiting the arrival into our studios of Dr. Ako John Ako. He'll be joining us in the course of the program, surely caught in traffic, as well as Edmond Kuate, an economist. He just called that he's caught in traffic. They're going to be joining us to also shed more light on what is happening. But I start with you, Apostle Ambe Valentine Ngwa. The scarcity of fuel in Cameroon, how can we explain this? We produce crude, we refine crude, but there is shortage. What's happening?
Mr. Leo, the fuel crisis is not the Cameroonian challenge. It's a global challenge.
Okay.
There's fuel scarcity in Nigeria, there's fuel scarcity in Cameroon. The fuel prices rose from 145 naira per liter in Nigeria to 165, and now we're at 180 per liter in Nigeria. The same in Cameroon, the fuel prices rose. We are about 700 francs per liter of fuel in Cameroon right now. It's not a challenge that seems to be happening only in Cameroon, because even in the UK, there is a hike in fuel prices.
In the US?
In the US equally, all over the globe. Why? Because first and foremost, the price of fuel is not controlled by Cameroonian authorities. Fuel is controlled from the world market. A barrel of fuel has risen to $120, something that has not been held for years now. It rose to $100 some few months ago. Now it has risen to $120. And once the price of fuel increases in the world market, there's a backlash on the younger economies. For instance, Cameroon is facing this challenge because Cameroon is not a refining nation. Cameroon is a country that extracts and sells crude oil. And when oil is sold at the crude level, it is refined and processed over there, sent back to us here at very high prices. And you know, the people who are determining the price of fuel are the ones who can determine if the price will increase or not. Because of the challenge in so many other commodities in the world, basic commodities, because it started with the rise in basic commodities all over the world. So I think those who are producing the fuel must have created this scarcity because they have the power to create the scarcity to manipulate the demand and the supply scale. And by so doing, definitely they are going to take now the consequences of these fuel prices to balance up what is occurring when it comes to the basic commodities like flour and bread and the rest of the other things. So I think one of the pressure that is coming to African countries, because those who are the ones refining this fuel, they are the ones who must have created this scarcity. And since we are not the ones refining the fuel, the best we can do is to extract and sell crude oil.
Sunara refines.
Sonara does not refine fuel. It's not it's called National Oil Refinery, but it does not refine fuel. I think we only do extraction of fuel in Cameroon and send abroad for them to be processed there and brought back here. Sonara is not a refinery that refines fuel. It doesn't.
Okay. Now, what is happening? Are we also just paying a price of a war that is fought out of Africa, a global phenomenon?
Well, I would say that crises are bound to exist as humans are living on Earth. But now, it is how these crises are managed that we have to look at. When there is a situation, we will be looking at the solutions. You know, the issue of fuel scarcity is a very, very important issue because fuel scarcity have a respondent effect on the whole economy of each country. And this respondent effect starts from where lack of fuel leads to increase in transportation of goods and services, of people, of movement, which leads to increase in prices of the goods, since it's only few cars that may be available to take this good or no car at all to take them from one place to another, maybe farm to market, farm to market and market to direct consumers. And in general, the people who suffer from this effect is mostly the poor who may be unable to have even the fuel that may be reserved just for a certain class of people, like what is happening in Yaoundé now. Because to have fuel in Yaoundé now is like connection. You need to call those people who do reservoir of fuel in order that you might even have some quantity, you see. So the poor suffers the consequence more. But I want to look at the fuel scarcity issue as a kind of world economic diplomacy, which the weak economic countries suffer the consequences than the strong economic countries, because we produce the crude oil in large quantity and export to the countries that refines them and resell to us in very high prices. And we keep on saying that there is a problem in our government and government systems in these economic low economic countries, Africa, Cameroon, for example, where we have those equipments, workforce, labor, the money to put in place our own refinery structures that could transform these crude oils into the oil, into the gas oil, into the petrol that we use to run our vehicles. What is wrong with using the money that the Minister of Finance is claiming that they are using to subsidize fuel in Cameroon, to instead put it in Sonara there in Limbe, so that we can transform crude oil to what? Consumable output that is used in the different fuel stations. So the concern here is the management, because any proactive government will understand that crises such as fuel scarcity, if not well managed, might lead to a national economic crisis, since fuel has a kind of magnified effect on the rest of consumer goods. So we are trying to say experts in the government, working with Ministry of Finance, working with sector of petroleum and engineering, working with research on petroleum and engineering. This is the moment that we're expecting that such experts will come on board to say, all right, if the government take this measure, this will be the effect. If the government takes this measure, this will be the effect. But the Ministry of Finance is not a superhuman, or did not do all the studies in all sectors to understand that this is how to tackle fuel scarcity, this is how to tackle petroleum issue. No.
Okay. So, Dr. Aku, Cameroonians are watching this program. They know that there is fuel scarcity in major cities across Cameroon, Yaoundé particularly. Basically speaking, how do we explain this to those who are watching us? that we cannot afford as enough fuel as required by the users.
You can imagine that it's not the first time. It's not the first time this is happening. Remember, the 2008 uprising came as a result of an increase in the prices of fuel.
Yes, but
that is what I just want to tell
you. That was
you.
just price increase, but we are talking about shortage here.
Yeah, that is what I'm coming to it. So at one time, we found time to increase prices. At one time, we are unable now to purchase. Which means that a lot of Cameroonians should be told, if they are not aware, like Apostle Ambe said, that we don't refine our own oil. We don't refine our own oil, meaning there's an extra cost, even on the side of the government, to purchase more. One of the things, again, Cameroonians need to know now is that before the hike in prices of fuel at the world market, Cameroon is going through a serious economic storm. Cameroon financially is not buoyant enough. And this has equally affected the stockage of petrol in the first 4 months that has gone by, and we are now feeling the impact. And when you get it, you feel, people are telling you that it is because there is an increase in the world market. The reason is that the government does not have enough money to continue the same procedure with fuel. The government have been unable to pay a lot of money to what we call investors, those who have invested their money in Cameroon. The IMF has put a lot of burden on the government to repay back the loans he was owing. And this happens at the time government will not saying that again, well, economic changes. Yes, people said it is global, but I want people to understand that Cameroon petroleum market is not affected by changes in the world prices. Cameroon is not a major player in OPEC and has never been. The oil prices have always been dropping equally, like we are saying. People would notice that prices are dropping, and Joe Biden has told Americans that the decision taken are helping to drop down prices of oil in the US. You realize that Cameroon will not drop. Cameroon prices will not drop. We expect that they will still go up, giving us an interest that the fact is that the government had the possibility of making it well, but the government is unable because it's lack of finances. Cameroon is paying back a lot of debts at this time. What we are seeing, people will use the word subsidies. Some people need to understand that what we call subsidies in the domain of petroleum are extra taxes or burden the government was supposed to be collecting, which has not collected and has allowed this money in the hands of those who are managing the petroleum sector. And this which means at this time we are talking that government subsidies will not be coming again, is that government will start collecting back its taxes in this domain to salvage its economic situation, which is already deplorable. It was in this particular atmosphere that a lot of Cameroonians who came out sometime to say we can no longer bear it. It has started in Yaoundé, and we believe or thinking that if measures are not taken necessarily enough, otherwise we are going to call people names again. In 2008, some people were called as apprentice sorcier, because when the center can no longer hold, where Cameroonians can no longer feed, when those who have to drive, they can't drive. I believe Apostle Ambe is one of the victims. Yes, they are having engines. I don't know how he managed to be here, but it is not easy equally for you to have that product which you need. A common Cameroonian on the street should know that we have taken a lot of burden, a lot of loans to construct the stadiums for the African Cup of Nations, and we knew very well that there was going to be payment time. This is payment time, and we, in a most honest government, like they do in other regimes, we hope the press secretary of the government was supposed to tell Cameroonians that there's a reality, that there's a burden on our soldiers. But since we have a government that does not communicate, meaning we are just going to keep on doubting and making the talking, and they would still come back to their decision. So government has a lot of loans to pay with the IMF. Remember, we were with you here in June. If Cameroonians are aware, it is only in June that the budget for 2022 was launched open. And in July, the budget for 2023 is now being launched to be debated upon. We ask what we have realized in 2022 that we want to realize in 2023. So there are a lot of confusion in what we call budgeting in Cameroon, because this particular 2022 has already been promised really very poor in terms of government performance. And we think that if government refuses or will start taking taxes now from fuel subsidies, people should expect that in 2023, the price of a liter of fuel may go right up to 800 or even 900. Okay. And no matter how it drops in the US or drops in Nigeria, Nigeria is a major player in OPEC. If it will range in the US at 500 francs a liter, Nigeria will sell oil at 500 francs. But in Cameroon, don't be surprised. I said the prices may still go up right up to 2023.
Okay. Are we saying that Cameroonians should be getting ready for an imminent price increase in respective fuel products?
Yes, Mr. Liu. From what Dr. Jonako just said, it's something we've observed in this country. There was a time that most of the offshore and onshore workers couldn't go to work because the price of fuel fell in the world market. But there was no effect here. A liter of petrol was still 600 francs, nothing affected. But you move to Nigeria, price of fuel that dropped, it fell from 145 a liter to 75 naira a liter. That tells you that the effect of the drop in price in the world market affected Nigeria, but it didn't touch Cameroon. So why should the increase of fuel prices in the world market affect Cameroon? Why is it that when it's dropping in the world market, it's not affecting us? We don't benefit the drop. Now that there is an increase, because a barrel of fuel right now is $100, $120. Now we are rising up. A liter of gas, 850 francs. My car is gas. I'm not able to drive because I couldn't come here with my car because there's no gas, first of all. In the first place, there's no gas. There is no gas anywhere. So I think there is a problem with the way we are managing things in the country. Secondly, I think we penalize more the citizens of the country when we hear of information, because it's like they are waiting for the slightest information that will penalize the citizens to come up, and then they pick it from there. Now that they have heard that there's an increase in the price in the world market, everybody now can stand and say prices have increased. But I was here in 2018, 2017, when the prices of fuel dropped in the world market. It came for $40 a barrel of fuel, $35 a barrel of fuel. But it did not affect Cameroon because the liter of fuel was still 600. So now, why is it that when there is an increase, there is automatic response here, and when there is a decrease, there is no response here? So I still believe that this thing will definitely be increasing up and up. Now you go to some particular petrol stations, they might not even sell with the standard where the government is giving. If the government says it's 700 a liter, they can put it at 750, and nobody will question it. And that's the reason we have been hitting hard about a price control unit in the country that can redress the situation to make sure that everybody even follow the line that the government is putting. Because when the government puts the line that is 750 per liter, some petrol stations will put it at 800, and nobody will go to question them. That's the challenge. So there will be a definite increase in the fuel prices, and this fuel price might even drop in the world market. But you will never see it drop here. We are now aware that it has reached to 700 francs per liter. Let us hear that in the next 4 or 5 days or 10 days, the barrel of fuel has fallen from $100 in the world market to $60. You will discover the 700 per liter here will not change. It will still be maintained. Now, I was following an information interview by the Francis Okigwe, who was a special member from the Senate in the place of the petroleum and oil and gas. He said they are not going to give fuel subsidies in Nigeria, because initially it's going to be painful to the citizens, but in the long run it will balance the economy. They will not give fuel subsidies. He said, he started to say Cameroon, Benin, Ghana, Guinea Equatorial are not giving subsidies. But only for us to sit here, we hear the minister announce that they are giving 600 million as fuel subsidies, billion as fuel subsidies of the country, which is not real. Nigeria is using Cameroon as one of the reference countries that do not give fuel subsidies. Then how come our own minister is telling us that they're giving 600 billion for a subsidy? It doesn't. To me, to the best of my understanding, there's supposed to be strike a balance. If at all the price of fuel increases, then they were definitely supposed to go and increase now the subsidies on basic commodities like savon or gari, rice, so that the weight of the fuel should be regulated on the basic commodity. Because why? Not everyone uses fuel. But everyone drinks gari, everyone uses oil, everyone uses soap. So let the weight of the fuel be balanced with the basic commodities. Don't subsidize fuel, because not everyone needs fuel. But everyone needs rubbing oil, everyone needs cooking oil, everyone needs Maggi, everyone needs salt to eat per day. So subsidize what we consume constantly, and then leave the price of the fuel to remain. So the burden does not fall on everyone. I think when crises come in the country, they were supposed to normally make it so that the things that affect everyone should be subsidized. Then the one that does not affect everybody, not every average Cameroonian drives the car. Yes, we can be in a place of about 6 persons, you may find out only 2 persons drive the car. But all those 6 persons eat with oil every day. They eat with salt every day, we eat Maggi every day. So what do we subsidize? We subsidize what can reach everyone every day, rather than subsidize. What are they subsidizing for? It doesn't make any sense. That's an economic balance. So there's supposed to be an equilibrium. When the weight goes on one side, they say a pendulum needs an equal and opposite force for it to maintain equilibrium. So when the pendulum swings this way, it has to swing this way. So if it is swinging towards the fair prices, then give us the basic commodity subsidy so that the pendulum can swing the other way and then maintain equilibrium.
Okay.
That's what we are trying to advise.
Yeah, but no, what according to you as the government got to do to ensure that we have fuel? The government is announcing that some fuel got into Yaoundé on Monday, and Wednesday there is also fuel that got into Yaoundé. Where do we get the money now to be able to acquire, purchase as much as needed in the country? But to know that we refine Sonora, it is true you say Sonora does not refine, but we also supply neighboring countries. Should we not start from there, making sure that we have what we need at home first?
Well, I first of all have an issue with our economic policies. I always go to economic policies because a country runs from macro to micro. When you're looking at the micro aspects of the economy, look at the macro. The macro are the policies that the government have set to achieve, economic policies that government have set to achieve. Cameroon seems not to understand even its own budgeting and the type of budget they are operating in. Because for a very long time now, Cameroon government have always been operating on budget deficit. Because we go for very huge loans, whereas no sector of the economy have been tax exempted. There is still effective collection of tax, and there is still even additional means of collection of tax, like the recent mobile money tax of January 2022. That's an additional means of tax collection. If the road tax toll gates are still there, if the normal consumer good taxes are still there, the normal income taxes are still there, and yet the population is increasing, small businesses are increasing, and all these direct and indirect taxes are still there. Why is it that the government keeps operating under budget deficit? That is the question. Because if government operating under budget deficit, it means that the corruption, the embezzlement is the real problem where we are having budget deficit. And now if you take the amount of money that government is receiving from our taxes and what they are collecting from International Monetary Fund, World Bank, friendly countries, and even financial institutions within the country, it will marvel us that, but why should Cameroon government explain to us that there is always budget deficit, whereas the economy is supposed to run normally based on tax collection policies put in place, based on government objectives to attain? See, this country has the generic problem of management of resources. And this problem of management of resources is what has made the government to be unable to manage small problems like fuel scarcity. You will see that countries like Nigeria, South Africa, Ghana, or the Western countries will not have a persistent containment of this fuel scarcity issue because they have proactive, pro-public economic policies they have already put in place and designed them. They know that in the situation of fuel scarcity, when government have problem of budget deficit, they can take money here to balance here and balance here and balance here, and the economy will be running. People will not have such difficulties. Apostle talk of taking money from a different sector to finance basic commodities. Yes, it's true, but do not forget that the economy functions basically on transportation. It is difficult in the situation of, because we're not talking of increasing fuel price maybe to take money from there and finance another sector. We are talking of scarcity, not available. Because when it is not available, it means that the number of cars consuming fuel per day will decrease. The number of goods transported from one area to another in the country will decrease. The number of people,
Arab contractors is laying off some workers because of shortage of gas, They say
Exactly.
they cannot
So
use
now-
most of their machines because they don't have gas.
Exactly. So now the problem here is not necessarily not subsidizing the people who are using cars or the fuel industry, but the problem here is to see how to make people have enough money. Because the number of what we call per capita income, the money available in people's pocket to even pay transport, is it going to be available? Are people's salary going to increase?
I want us to understand this. Someone did an analysis and sent this to me. It says fuel stations make steady profits, which means that what they buy from Sonora, by the time they sell, they make profits because there is an addition to it. SCDP net profit for 2021 stood at 2.3 billion. CSPH profit stood at 4.23 billion 2021. Sonora made profit in 2021. The state collects VAT at each state totaling about 144 francs per liter. Special tax per liter is 110 francs. Support to refinery per liter is 47 francs CFA. Can all of this explain why it is sold in Nigeria at 180 naira and sold in Cameroon in yet considered subsidized? How do we explain this?
It's a tax. If you look at it there, it's tax, because the fuel itself is not expensive. It's the amount of tax attached to the fuel per liter that costs a liter to rise about 700. If 144 francs is for this, if 45 francs is for this, you realize that almost every liter of fuel, if they deduct all those taxes there, a liter of fuel is about 240 francs.
Of course. Of course.
240 francs. So it is taxes that makes those...
The problem is that government has not levied income tax on fuel. It has levied what we call value added and indirect tax. So it has made it appear that they are not paying taxes, but at each level of production, each level of importation of the final product, they are paying tax. And the companies that have contract in the supply of fuel in the different outlets, Tradex, Total, Neptune, and the rest, are having their special contracts with the government where they are paying these taxes and how they are recruiting and so on and so forth.
Talking about subsidizing basic commodities, let me land on what I told Fabrice. Subsidizing basic commodities, we are talking about the fact that there are some things that everybody consumes. You understand? And there's something not everybody consumes. Let us subsidize, because first and foremost, there is a hike on the price of basic commodities.
Yes, as we speak.
As we speak now, with the situation on Ghana, a hike in fuel prices. If they subsidize basic commodities, you discover the burden will not be so much on the consumers, because there is a reduction at one end of the burden, which has been positioned at the position where everybody can have access.
Yeah, I get your point. Just that I would have preferred encouraging local production, because most of the basic commodities that are consumables in Cameroon, we have the capacity to produce them. But those things are basically imported, which is a problem.
We are talking about the fact that fuel is subsidized in Cameroon, yet sold at above 600 francs.
Yeah, even when fuel is equally subsidized, for what Cameroonians need to know.
Are we saying when we say fuel is subsidized in Cameroon, and then sold at 600, are we saying that fuel was supposed without subsidies? It was
at least 1,000 francs.
1,000 francs. That's what.
Yeah, that's what the government is telling us. But technically, like we are saying, that without subsidies.
Price with other prices of other countries.
Yes.
No, we are not. I have said here, we should know that Cameroon oil sector does not depend on the oil prices. That one, we should know it. It is honesty. But we should equally realize that the Cameroon economy is what we call a tax economy. The government by itself does not generate any income, if not from taxes. Not only petrol suffers this impact, like he was saying. Many will tell you that a bag of rice comes from Thailand at 8,500, but ends in the kitchen at 25,000 francs. Maybe Cameroonians are not aware that a bag of rice getting to the port of Douala is at 8,500, but enters your kitchen at 25,000. What has happened from when it was bought at 8,500 to when it enters your kitchen? We need to know that the Cameroon government collects up to about 13,000 in tax varieties. The taxes are levied and named, giving different names. That is what even those who have the Cameroon economy at hand. Why not just ask a tax? Why say income tax, transport tax, this is tax? You ask, and then at the end, who labors? The consumer. Some Cameroonians who depended on rice are unable to eat. That's why I see some of us even invoke, and I was equally okay with their Apostle Ambe, that instead of subsidizing things which not all Cameroonians are using, Cameroonians are crying presently of food. Can we subsidize the agriculture and see results in 12 months' time? That removes 672 billion subsidies. Removes even just 50% of that and encourage agriculture. So that the moment we start eating well, maybe people will have energy to ride bicycle. Because there are countries, when you go to places like India, to fight climate change, one of the things people have encouraged there is that we use on less non-automobile cars, vehicles, non-driven vehicles with non-toxic. Okay. And you find it very well in the streets of New Delhi that people go to work. You have seen even Boris Johnson, as the mayor of London, was always on his bike to work. And this is just to encourage everybody that a dependence on a certain product might not even help the economy. So why not get to sectors that Cameroonians will be more at ease, so that somebody who is at Mvomeka or Ngolomeduka or Yokaduma will feel the impact. We are going to borrow. IMF are giving this year to Cameroon over 60 billion francs CFA to subsidize the hard cost of economic situation. We were thinking 60 billion by IMF to soften the cost of living. Cameroon was just supposed to quench off certain taxes at the port, that especially taxes related to rice or importation of fish or red oil or vegetable oil. We quench it off. The effect will just be felt the next day in the market, that since prices of fuel has dropped. We could equally imagine what the Anglophone crisis brought in the domain of tomato. Tomato dropped to 1,500 for a basket, and everybody could eat tomato. Just imagine that if such an impact again is given. Because instructions were given here, all the measures have not worked. At one point, we should stop exporting vegetable oil. Azu should stop selling this abroad. They should sell at home. But we are surprised that from the time that decision was made, a liter of vegetable oil was at 1,200. Today we are talking of 1,500. So meaning the decision has still not worked. And then we ask the question, who are you, that person, when government passes decisions and you sit in your own room and you decide your own price of your own products? In a real government, it doesn't work. And that is why we are saying we don't know which government we belong to. Because people just sit in the market, they sell their prices and nothing will happen. Because those who are made to execute these prices are really junks. I don't know what is happening, but we simply maybe need a messiah to enter or come into this nation. The oil prices we have seen here, I said that if care is not taken, at the level at which we are now, if something is not done about it, the high cost of living, Cameroonians are aware. The hikes in the prices of basic commodities in the market, Cameroonians are aware. And we should know that homes are bubbling. Mothers are surprised that a 10,000 francs is unable to feed a home. And that will bring us problem. We just try to see that Sri Lanka has been the first of those nations that have suffered the impact of the high cost of living. We don't know where the ball will move. Because I know when the Arab Spring came, people thought it was going to finish only with Ben Ali in Tunisia, but it caught a lot of people on the same trap. So if care is not taken, our country may suffer one of the greatest or the worst crises. This we have said last year. It is more than 8 months now. Government machineries are not really helping matters.
Okay, we have just been joined by Edmond Kuate. He's an economist. Edmond, we're glad to have you. You were able to beat the traffic and join to discuss what is being faced today by Cameroonians, not only Cameroonians, Africans, and the world at large, but seemingly difficult to understand that we are facing a fuel shortage in Cameroon. We produce oil, and subsidies are set to be given to Cameroonian fuel, and going by what we pay, 600 and something francs CFA, compared with what other countries. What is actually not happening?
If you want to understand this picture, there are many things which are not really clear. First, when you talk of the government subsidizing oil product in Cameroon. I mean, you got to understand, because so far the government has been trying to communicate over this issue, but it's not very clear. What do we call subsidy in Cameroon? Does it mean, because when you follow the communication of the government, it seems as if it is new resources being affected.
Yes.
You know, some resources being collected from other lines
Areas,
and affected to, subsidize the petroleum products, which is not very clear. Because if that is the case, then it means, where is the money we are making out of the petrol? That is the first question. Because very clearly, subsidy means what? It simply means, because in the structuration, in the price structure of the petrol, 70% of the price is taxes. And subsidy means the government will cancel off some of the lines of these taxes, and then to enable the marketers to buy at a certain price in the international market, and being able to put it at affordable price in the pump for the consumers. But the way the government is communicating, because if you follow the communique of the Minister of Energy, Water and Energy, Mr. Gaston Elundu Esomba, he said that the subsidy is actually costing a lot of money to the government, which is true. But he said that just for the first trimester, it was 317 billion, and for the only month of June, it was 80 billion. And he precised that the government has been finding it very difficult to mobilize these resources and put it at the disposal of the marketers. So from this communication, it seems as if the government is actually mobilizing money.
Resources from somewhere else.
Resources from somewhere else to put it at the disposal of the marketers, which is not very clear. Because that is not what we call subsidies. Subsidies only means what the government is supposed to cash from this particular area. Then he will say, okay, I will not take it. I will not touch it. So you take it, and that will enable you to operate. That's what we call subsidies. Like, for instance, if you're selling this phone at 1,000 francs, and from this 1,000 francs, the government is supposed to collect 200 francs, and the government realizes you are having difficulties to supply this phone, he can say, okay, I'm taking 200 from this phone, so I will not take it, or I will only take 100 francs. So you take the 100 francs to be able to balance your operations. That's what we call subsidies. But here, the government is talking as if he is supposed to mobilize some new resources from somewhere else, from a different area, from the sales of maybe wood, or I don't know what, or something else, to buy, to support the petroleum product, which is not true. So that's the first thing. And the main problem we got here, and this is the question all Cameroonians are asking, we are all producers. Why are we not benefiting? Because actually we know that the oil prices has been fluctuating in the international market, and then the provision was we are supposed to sell our oil at $80 per barrel, but now in the international market it's like $120 per barrel, which means Cameroon is having like 40% benefit, from what really foreseen in the first place. So we're supposed to have 40% out profit more. So normally we're not supposed to be facing any difficulties. But what we should understand is that for the past how many years, before even Sonara got into problems, Cameroon was already refining 20% of his local consumption, and the rest was we were importing it. So the 20% was like kind of to balance the cost in the international market, because don't forget that when you sell crude oil and you import refined oil, it is much more expensive. So since Sonara got burned, and nobody has cared to resettle everything or put it back, Cameroon has been importing 100% of the product they consume of refined oil. That's the product we consume locally, be it gas oil, whatsoever, and the rest. 100%. So that's where the problem is. That's where our problem is. Just to give you some figures, last year, 2020, 2021, Cameroon sold out, I mean, the crude oil we sold was like 1,175 billion. But what we imported, refined oil we imported was 1,350 billion. So you see the gap. It's very expensive. So that's what is making things very difficult for Cameroon now. And now, the problem is even different. Because if you follow the explanation from the director of what we call in the French acronym SCDP, she said, what is making things difficult for a marketer in the market is that international partners do not longer accept letter of credit coming from Cameroon. Do you know what it means? They want cash. It simply means that Cameroon is suffering from currencies in the operational account abroad. So our international transaction, our partner are finding it difficult to liquefy the letter of credit coming from Cameroon. Simply because in the operational account, there is no currency. So definitely, for our international partner to give their goods, refined oil, they need cash, which Cameroon doesn't have. So you might even have CFA here in your local account, good, but for you to send it, you will not buy oil with CFA. No, you cannot use CFA you have to convert it into dollars. And these dollars need to be sitting in the operational account in France to be able to convert when you sell a letter of credit and then enable the international bank to liquefy your letter of credit and then give you goods. Cameroon cannot do that anymore.
Is that why we are facing the question?
That's one of the reasons why we are facing a lot of problems.
Okay. Okay.
And if that is where the problem is, I'm afraid that we're not going out of this situation tomorrow morning, so soon. I'm afraid.
Yeah, but I want us to understand why we purchase subsidized fuel in Cameroon at 600 francs CFA when other countries pay far less.
Like which country?
Nigeria, for example.
Nigeria produce oil and refine oil, so they don't have problem. Had it be Cameroon Sonara was operational, and Cameroon could say, okay, daily I am producing 150, because Cameroon is producing in between 150 and 110 barrels per day. Then Cameroon could rationally say, okay, my local consumption daily is 50 barrels. Okay, I will refine 50 barrels for my local consumption, and then I will decide the price in the pump. And then I will sell out in the international market 50 or 100 barrels. Then no problem. You make the decision locally. That's what Nigeria is doing. That's what other countries are doing. You see, when the problem between Russia and Ukraine started, and then there were all these sanctions decided by the Western countries, the first thing that the president did was to reduce the price of oil. Why? Because that is his business. He has full control on it. That's the first thing he did. He said, okay, I will cut the price of oil into two, and then you will pay half. That's the decision he made. And one problem, you will see that whenever there's a problem in most of these countries, even Saudi Arabia, when there's a problem, when there's an economy, the first thing they will do is they will reduce the price of oil. Why? Because economy is energy transform. So when you reduce the cost of energy, then you reduce the production factors, and then you reduce the price of all the commodities. That's what people do. But for long, we've been trying to explain to people that the way we are operating is going to cause us a lot of havoc in the next days. Why can't you allow Sonara to refine our oil? How can you have a refinery station like Sonara, but yet you're selling crude oil out there and you're importing back. I mean, it's like somebody, if to be clear, to talk in very simple way, I would use this analogy. It's like somebody, a farmer, you get a bag of maize, you sell it like 5,000, and you go and sit in a very luxurious restaurant, and you pay a plate of fufu corn for 10,000. Yet you have sold a bag of maize at 5,000. It doesn't make sense.
Okay.
That's exactly what we've been doing.
Okay.
To clue, a lot of people equally are not aware. Sonara was not constructed to transform and refine. Sonara construction ended with completing transformation. What Sonara even transform, people say transform, is semi-finished product. With the present world changes, for those who are not aware, a lot of French partners have abandoned Sonara before even the fire incident, because government had intention to expand Sonara so that we start refining our own. A lot of French partners that were partnering with Sonara said it is not necessary because the world is moving towards what they call green economy, and that today with renewable energy, others have other alternatives. You remember countries like Brazil now own a lot of fuel coming from sugarcane, and so some people are bringing down a forest to generate fuel from sugarcane. Others have gone into rechargeable cars. So a lot of partners at Sonara, I have visited Sonara, this was first-hand information given, that there was a need to expand because really the government of Cameroon is not understanding why he's spending a lot on fuel. Why the closest neighbors of Cameroon, we are talking about Nigeria, we have not been to Equatorial Guinea and Gabon. It is simply the same thing. The guys have a cheaper fuel standard, but now the level at Gabon and Equatorial Guinea is because they are linked to CEMAC routes. And since we live within the same CEMAC zone, they don't want any other member to go really below the others. So when you get to Equatorial Guinea and Gabonese, even as Cameroonians are complaining now, you will not hear a lot of complaints from these people because Parliament is not thinking of increasing. But what is affecting Cameroon now that we need to know is that government is trying already to make a foreseeability for 2023. And we should know how budget is being drafted. Budget is drafted on expenditure for this year and make it a possibility for next year, which means if oil prices are remaining at the same level, government is already making a possibility on how much it's going to spend on subsidies. And some quarters are even saying that government subsidies to petrol, if remaining at this level, it might triple by next 2023. And the budget we are going to vote in November, it might be very difficult for Cameroonians because those who are supplying the oil to Cameroon, they are buying it at the foreign price. That price will be what Cameroonians are going to buy. Okay. And that is what we're going to consume. So the people of Cameroon, generally with the government, if Sonara cannot function again, then we should just be thinking that there are more bitter days.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Liu. The problem is that the government does not know the difficulties of Cameroonian citizens in a country such as Cameroon. It's not supposed to face this type of issue with all our resources. We can't provide petrol to all our citizens. It's Vero, writing from Bonaberi. I love this program. Good evening to you, Veronique, writing from Bonaberi. Fuel shortage or the image of what lies ahead. Okay, you are sending me this article by Dieudonné Isumba. Greetings to you, blessed intellectuals in the studio, especially Professor Ako, the man with a lion heart. I just want to wish you people the best. May God bless you all for the great work you are doing to help our country. And my prayer is that everybody at his own corner should make use of your discussion. With the topic at hand, let God help our economy sit up. Chani Joseph, writing from Yaoundé. Hello, Mr. Liu, and greetings to the panel on board. I'm first degree holder in petrochemical engineering. And firstly, let me say this country was not designed to solve the problem faced by Cameroonians. We are an oil-producing nation, but our refinery was constructed and designed not to refine our own crude. And secondly, a government with over 40 years in power was unable to upgrade, revamp the present refinery instrumentation. Mr. Liu, imagine using a deserter that handles corrosive crude for over 50 years without replacement. In 40 years of governance, we ought to have 2 or why not 3 other refineries designed to reduce cost of importing crude oil and refine our own Cameroon crude oil. Edmond, watching from Limbe. Let's take the reaction of Roland from Canada.
Greetings to you, Mr. Liu. Greetings to my co-panelists. Greetings, my prime time. This is Roland Mua from Canada. Please, let me go straight to the topic. I believe that the government is going to find it very difficult, to cope with the rising prices of fuel in Cameroon. And I believe that the major causes of this is that, Cameroon is one of the countries in Africa with a regime that has stayed in power for so long. High levels of embezzlement and of state funds, which are meant for the collective development of the nation. And I believe that the monies that were supposed to be used, to import a lot of crude oil, for storage, has not been used. And in Cameroon today, we don't have a clear cut. We don't have, we don't really have an accountability with the money from Sonora, accountability from our money from petrol. So I believe that's the start. But now, the war in Russia and Ukraine does not affect oil that much because, first of all, Saudi Arabia from 2009 was 2019. Saudi was one of the biggest producers of crude oil. We had Russia is the second. Now we have United States of America, which is the third. We have Canada, which is the fourth. Iraq, which is the fourth, and United Arab Emirates the fifth, and Kuwait, which is the fifth in world production. So I believe that if there's a war in Ukraine and between Ukraine and Russia, Canada has oil. United Arab Emirates have a lot of oil. Nigeria has a lot of oil. So there's no need to lie to Cameroonians that the shortage of crude oil. The problem is that the problem goes with the mismanagement of our state funds, as it has been the case with other actions. So I believe that Cameroonians should start understanding, to cut their purse, to reduce their expenses, and start thinking about other options, like reducing their usage of fuel, reducing, their time on, on machinery that consumes fuel and all the rest. So I believe that in the days ahead, we are going to witness an increase in prices. Here in Canada, fuel prices have already increased. And the government here is talking about an 8.1 inflation rate, which I believe that it is an economic meltdown because it is affecting major producers. It is an exchange which is lacking between Russia and Ukraine. So the export and import, like there are countries that import other forms of raw materials to get back crude oil to use. So now a barrel of crude oil is $109. It's very expensive. And I believe that it is making the production, the distilling of carburant, as they say, super and gasoil, to be very difficult to get. So I believe that in the days ahead, Cameroon should be ready, for an increase in price. It is not a government mechanism. It is a global perspective, which is caused, by mismanagement of state funds from our part, which has affected our export and imports, which has reduced our storage of crude oil, which has also made distilling expensive. Coming to the second topic, with the arrival of the French president there in Cameroon,
we're going to be taking his second, yes, but let us understand the profits that Cameroon has been able to make over the decades from our crude. Do we really know what's happening in that domain?
Mr. Leo, I think we are not going to politicize everything.
Crude and refined.
Refined, yes. Like you heard Mr. Kuate said 20% was refined, 80% was sold as crude. So now that produces at least 2,100,000 tons of oil per month. That is the amount of money. The amount of oil that comes out from Cameroon to the world market can be, how do I put it, can take care of half of the responsibilities of Cameroon. But the issue is the way they manage the resources. He said something, he said, if we were to sell at 80% at the $80 at the world market, and now it's $120, we have an additional $40, which we sell crude oil, not refined oil, in the world market. Now, considering the fact that we are importing more expensive than the way we are selling, with this additional $40 added to what we normally supposed to sell in the world market, I think that's a huge catch. Because at least 1/3 of the normal sales has been added. Because 40% is 1/3 of 120. If 1/3 has added to the normal money of to sell, then that's a huge amount of money added to what we sell as crude oil. Now, this money comes back to the country as money we sell crude oil per year. Where does the money go to? We have storage like SADP. We have SNH, who are also sources of oil in the country. Those people are making huge amount of money in the country. Where does the money go to? Because we are talking about embezzlement. Because I think the amount of money that oil generates in this country can take care of a lot of things in the country. But where does this money go to? It enters into the hands of which individuals? Because if it enters into the hands of the wrong people, you may think there is no money, not because there's no money, because the wrong hands handle the money. They are put in the country. When money enters into their hands, you may never think that money is existing. But money is in the country, but it's in the wrong hands. Now, in a time like this, there is always a reserve. Countries have reserve. Where is the reserve of the petrol and the gas that Sonara has been producing all these years in this country? Where is the reserve? When did they destroy Sonara? If they destroyed Sonara, I think 2 years ago. For all the years that Sonara was created in 1973 and inaugurated in 1981 by Ahmad Ahijo. Then now we have how many years from that time? Are you telling us that the 20% oil that has been refined in this country so far has not been able to produce a profit that could keep a reserve? Even economists were taught that there is money kept in every family for precautionary motives. Where is the gasoline? Because Sonara is involved in jet fuel, gasoline, petrol, essence, kerosene, fuel oil. There are about 6 to 7 different things processed in Sonara. This amount of money and oil produced in Sonara, don't we have reserve? Because there are large tanks in SZDP that stores fuel there. In times like this, countries fall back on their reserve. America has not even exploited its own oil wells, but it is dealing on the reserve it has collected from other countries in Africa and other parts of the world. That in case there is a fuel shortage in the world, it can never affect America to some extent. Because why? The reserve they have stocked so far. Then we who are the producers of this oil, where is our own reserve in moments like this? Where is our own reserve? Because I'm sure they were supposed to have gone to the reserve banks of where they stored oil many years ago to bring it now and then sell population while they are calculating studies on how to curb the situation on ground. So bad that our own international account does not have anything more to exchange for oil in the world market. That means what were we saving all throughout the years?
And not to cut there, just to add what Cameroonians equally are not aware is that we are not members of OPEC. And so just imagine if we are selling oil at the world market, who helps us in selling the oil? And who determines our price? And who sells our reserves from oil? If you answer this question, you realize the OPEC side of business and oil in Cameroon. Cameroon is not a member of OPEC, so who sells the oil? And through who does Cameroon oil get to the European market? And we know the rules here. If you are not a member of OPEC, then before you sell in the world market, you must pass through an intermediary. And the intermediary, which should know obvious, that it's the French Republic. And so the reserve we receive now from oil, as you're asking, where does it go?
I know you, I think you are aware of the scandal, this Glencore scandal. Glencore, yeah, I think that's the company. I think you people are aware of it.
Yeah, we are aware of the Glencore.
So he was the one so far negotiating our crude oil in the world market, and I think this thing is very complicated, and they are making it more complicated for Cameroonians. First of all, we got to understand that the oil participates only at 25% in our budget. Okay, that's the first thing we got to know. 25%
in the budget, but exactly not what is being run.
Yeah, and normally we have another institution called CSPH. CSPH, what is the role of the CSPH? Maybe people do not understand when they say Caisse de Stabilisation des Prix. Because the price of oil is never stable in the world market. You can have your forecast, like I said, $80 per barrel. Along the way, something happened, and then it drops maybe like $30 to $50. And something can also happen and the price increases, like $120 we are having now. So the CSPH role now is to collect the extra amount we make out. Yes, the $40 we make is not supposed to go into the budget, but the CSPH will collect it, this $40 per barrel. As long as the price stay like this, they will be, giving this $40 to CSPH. Now, what is the role of this 40%? In case the fluctuation is negative, that means the price drops. we are not the one to support it. Now, CSPH will use this $40, this extra amount to stabilize. That's why we say, qu'est-ce de stabilisation, because their role is to stabilize. They collect the huge profit we make when the prices are good in the market, and they use it to stabilize the prices when the prices are bad, when there are drops in the market. But the way things are moving, if you ask me the role of this CSPH, are they really playing their role as
Not really.
normally?
Maybe just again to add, imagine the prices have never dropped since I was born.
No, they dropped recently.
No,
When?
It dropped recently.
Wait, to how much?
No, the world
In
price.
2008 we were at 550.
No. We are talking at the global market.
I said Cameroon is not even a member of the global market. Our market is supposed even to be influenced by what moves out in the world.
Sure.
No, but
Of course.
Yeah.
Sure. There is indirect effect.
I want to ask Mr. Kuate something just before he comes. So let me just ask him something. Why is it that when the prices of fuel drop in the world market, is maintained in Cameroon, does not drop here? But when it increases in the world market, because I remember when a barrel of fuel was $30–40, it did not affect the fuel price in Cameroon. Now that the price of fuel has increased, it's affecting us here.
Yeah, and that is why my question was, does CSPH really play the role we expect from him?
He answered it in that issue.
Yeah, because
the board of stabilization of prices.
If I get his worry and the worries of almost all Cameroonians, Cameroonians would have expected that, okay, the prices were down. So Cameroon was buying at that time and then making huge profits. And then the huge profits were also supposed to go to
CSPH.
And then CSPH was supposed to...
Exactly.
Now that we are facing the difficulty, they were supposed to step in.
Exactly.
The stabilization should be dynamic.
Yes, but very, very complex. Is it that our economists, Mr. Wonderful economists, are they not doing their job, or what is happening, or is it the politics?
No, it's politics. It's politics dominating all sectors of the economy. Like I always say, we had a mixed economic system in Cameroon, where we are operating in a pro-public sector, where the government intervenes everywhere using high instructions. Because if there is a board to stabilize price, and where the board is supposed to come, and the board does not play its role, what happened? There was a call somewhere by somebody in a high office that, please, this thing cannot happen, you cannot do this, because those in the high offices are implicated in the illegal deals they have done with those negotiating the price of Cameroon oil in the world market, where these barrels of oil being sold, some of the money goes to their personal accounts, and as such, an independent board or organization or institution in charge of trying to make sure that profits and deficits are accounted for to Cameroonians are not done. These things become dormant. Secondly, you understand that Cameroon is a country that for a very long time have thrived over the ignorance of its citizens. And because the citizens as well have been so complacent with a dormant parliament that the executive arm of the government has overridden, it does make everything so complicated, because the Economic and Social Council of the Parliament has never raised any of such concern for it to be debated upon the Parliament about the resources and raw materials, because we are talking about crude oil and fuel today because there is scarcity. Remember, there are so many other sectors. Just imagine what is happening of brewery company, of Castel Group taking over Guinea. Those are so many other concerns.
Probably if it's not politics, how do you explain that a refinery that has the capacity to refine is permitted to refine only 20%?
Why should there even be only one refinery in a country like Cameroon since 61 years of its independence?
No, we can even have one. The problem at the beginning is that the technology that was installed in Cameroon, it was a kind of fake GL in the first place, because what we call the cracker that's supposed to refine oil, studies were made, and we realized that the crude oil of Cameroon was having a lot of sulfur. Therefore, we needed a particular cracker to refine our oil. But people decided to install a technology that cannot afford to refine our oil. That is politics. He mentioned something. I don't want to get into it because it's very critical. When he said that when Metuk decided to expand Sonara and install a new technology that they will actually refine our oil, the deputy manager, who was a French guy representing Total, he decided to resign. And he told Metuk that, okay, since you don't want to stop this project, I'm leaving. But by the time I will come back, you will leave. And that's what happened. When he came back, Metuk leave and he went to jail. And the expansion project stopped. That's one thing. So, second thing we got to understand is that petrol, the management of petrol in our countries, in our French colonial systems,
it is so political.
Is very complex. This is out of the petrol that the government is making what they call sovereign funds, and the sovereign funds is where the government take money to face when there is a unforeseen situation. And these particular funds have been aggressively used since 2011, first with Boko Haram, and since 2016 with the Anglophone crisis.
And even for political campaigns.
Because something you people don't know, war is not managed out of the budget. If you go into the budget, you will never see a line when they say security. It doesn't exist. So when there's a problem, like security problem we got in the northwest, in the southwest, in the far north, is in these sovereign funds that the government will go and take money to, because if they give you the budget of war per week, I'm sure you will become blind. Yeah, it's the minimum amount is 600 million per week, because you got like 5,000 guys out there. Imagine they have to eat in the morning, they have to drink water, they need logistics, they need ammunition, they need bullets, they need and you see these guys are that are destroying the armor cars every day. They have to replace it. It costs a lot of money. So all this fund has been siphoned since 5 years already that we are on the 6 years already by the crisis. That's why today you cannot really ask where the money of the petrol is going to. It's difficult because since 2011 that we have started with Boko Haram, this is where, because before 2011, the government was not suffering too much because in case of any problem, the sovereign fund was there. The petroleum could really balance everything when there's a problem with the budget, even when they cannot collect enough money with the taxes and the customs and things like that. They will use this these sovereign funds to try to balance things. But now it's very difficult because we have been using these funds for long and without replacement. And by the time they are using this fund, there are a lot of international crises like COVID, and now the Russia and the Ukraine crisis and so on. So it's very difficult. And that's why you see the IMF today is kind of putting a lot of pressure on Cameroon to remove the subsidy in the fuel. And that's where problems are really going to start, because now so far we're complaining because it's not yet the case. But when the government will succumb, because now they are trying to resist, but when they will succumb and quit the subsidies, the normal price will have the same price like France, for instance. You know that in France the liter of oil is like 1,000 or 200, because it's €2.40, €2.18 or 30. So that's the normal price of oil if at all there is no subsidy. To me, again, I would say that subsidizing petroleum products is not the best solution. That is something we could have done for 1 year while looking for national solution. We could have the government could have subsidized the oil for 1 year and take this 1 year to make Sonara being operational and refine our oil. But they have been doing this since 2008, when we had the riots here in Cameroon. You know, people were complaining that people went on in the street, demonstrating in the street, and then they decided to subsidize the oil. They could have done that for 2 years and then say, okay, for the next 2 years, we will subsidize the oils. But after that, along the way, we install a new technology in Sonara and then refine our own product. That was not done.
That was not done. We are running out of time. We have to discuss on our second topic for tonight, which has to do with the visit to Cameroon of our French President Emmanuel Macron. I'll start with you, Dr. John Aku. What are the key expectations from the visit? What would you expect the French president to address with Cameroon's president?
You know, we have been told that he was invited by the Cameroon president, President Paul Biya, and remember, after the major national dialogue, the head of state was in France, and Macron is coming here for the second mandate. The first African country is visiting. People equally wish that they will use the opportunity maybe to strengthen the lost French reputation within the continent, and consider that presently in the CEMAC zone, President Paul Biya remains first against any other French colony except the New Sassou Nguesso, that he respected very much now. And after a lot of upheavals with the war in Ukraine, I believe they are going to talk about the new agreement, the security situation in Ukraine, and how Cameroon has equally mingled himself to sign a new agreement with the Russian Federation on security aspect. There have equally been a lot of talks that high-level talks at the presidency of the Republic, they were considering bringing Wagner, the Russian spy security giant, to equally combat insecurity in the northwest and the southwest. So the French government is equally informed about this particular movement. We expect equally that the Anglophone crisis which the French high officers or Élysée have not spoken about, is going to be talked about. The political tension, a lot of political prisoners, the country is still looming. Remember when the leader of the MRC party was arrested and imprisoned because of a planned civil demonstration. He was arrested. It was based on President Emmanuel Macron's instruction that he was released, and that was made known to Cameroonians. Others are still behind bars since after that particular demonstration. We equally thinking that some pundits really are saying that there is a need for a change of leadership in Cameroon, that people will not be happy to be talked about, but then it might be settled that Cameroon might be running to the elections in 2024 or 2025, as others said, and there is a need for who takes over, because the French government has been at the point of choosing leadership within its African countries or its colonies, and always, whenever such decisions are made, we have top French officials visiting one or two of those nations. Remember, he was equally in charge to install the Idriss Déby's son as the next leader after the father was brutally assassinated. And now we are seeing Macron visiting Cameroon again. It will mean something more. The last time a French leader visited was during the era of François Hollande. And we know this is when Cameroon had a crisis duration of who manages the port of Douala with Bolloré. And when the port of Kribi was equally constructed, a lot of Cameroonians were thinking that it was time for Cameroonians to manage their own port. But we saw Macron, Hollande coming to Cameroon and handing the port back to Bolloré. So we are thinking that a lot of things will be discussed. A lot of the relationship between Cameroon and France have been a lot strengthened, because many of those who promised that have been against the Cameroonian government presently, what we call La Base, all of them, and most at 60%, most of them equally live in France. And I believe the Cameroon government will be thinking of strengthening more relationship with the French Republic if those who are responsible of carrying such attacks on ministers when abroad, especially in France, can be brought to book. We saw a lot of that in recent times when a concert was organized. I believe it should be by one of the great Dakars, and in fact, brutally, that venue was disturbed a lot. There have been tension between Cameroon and Paris, and we think the head of state, and if at all we were told that the Anglophone crisis is being fought militarily because the French government has not given its okay for any sincere and inclusive dialogue. If that can be on the table, why not? Meeting political opponents and leaders like Gabriel Libi, Nijon Frundi, the civil society would equally mark that particular agenda. The French government is at the time of seeking information at all corners of Cameroon's social life. If possible, the successor of the Republic might equally be discussed within a very shadow or dark room.
Okay. Apostle Ambe, Valentine. We are talking about a meeting that is very crucial, especially at the time when Cameroonians are talking about transition, but also in the context of the Anglophone crisis. What would you expect the French president to say or discuss with President Paul Biya in this direction?
Stanley, I'm not expecting anything new.
Okay.
Because when we're at the heat of the crisis, we expected a savior to come in. Not when the embers of the crisis are gradually dying away and the flame of the crisis is actually going out of touch. I don't think he has something important to do now, because when people were dying, their numbers, both military and civilians, we needed somebody to come as a quencher. Nobody came within that period. You can feel the crisis is no longer at the same position it used to be. Almost everything is rounding up. I think he's coming here for the interest first for the French people before Cameroonians. Okay. The French don't step out for nothing. They always step out when their interest is at stake. And I think that the French's interest in Africa is at stake in almost all its former colonies. And so they are going out to strengthen ties and to make sure that the broken walls of the French Empire in Africa should not be eroded by the flood of the uprising from all African countries, because from what they have experienced in Guinea, experience in Burkina Faso, experience in Mali so far, experience in Central Africa, I think they are being threatened that Cameroon is the next. Since Russia has become a bone to their throat in Africa, so Russia signing a deal with Cameroon, inviting the Wagner company to come and maintain security in this country, is a red light and a red flag to the French government that is another colony they are about to lose again. That's the reason why Macron is stepping into this country. If they can touch other things concerning the Anglophone crisis and the transition stuff, it's just because it's an aside attached to its original intent of coming to Cameroon. French don't step into any area until their interest is at stake. And I believe here, one of the things that the Malians did that actually took away their submission to the French government was because they invited the Wagner security company to come and train mercenaries in the land of Mali. And that was how gradually they cut off from France. And today Mali is drafting a new constitution to govern the nation of Mali. Mercenaries were sent from Cote d'Ivoire recently, who were arrested at the Bamako airport to go and eliminate Assimi Goïta, arrested by the Malian security forces. I think with all what is happening in Africa, there's a threat over the French control in Africa, and I think Macron is coming to give a warning that don't go the way others have gone, because we see your brothers are about to they are taking another trend, they are taking another route. If we see you guys there go that way, there's going to be very serious trouble. And then transition, what do they have to say? They have preached us democracy and they are practicing monarchy. They are practicing monarchy in Togo. Foreign Asingbe took over in Edmond Asingbe. In Gabon, Ali Bongo has taken over Oma Bongo Ndimba. We are in charge. Idris has taken over the father. And we have seen an uprising of Frank Biya as the next president. On all the newspapers are saying that Frank Biya is the hope of Cameroon. I saw a group of, I don't know what people in a particular Ngwa house burning candles and charms and saying that we want to appreciate our president, Olivier Manuel Frank Biya. Those are some of the things I will tell you that sometimes we are moving into another dynasty as far as Macron is entering Cameroon. Okay.
It's also expected to meet amongst other persons, political leaders. I don't know whether you guys are invited, PAP, but he's going to be discussing with the president of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, that of the Social Democratic Front, as well as Cabral Libi. What should be that focus from political parties? What is it expected? Some people are suggesting that maybe President Macron wants to prepare them for a possible transition. What do you people want? Do you want an outright situation where there is civil strife after when transition finally comes, or prepare their minds that we need to work together to ensure that the transition is smooth?
I think the consultation started a long time ago. The French embassy, for a time now, have been inviting people to sample opinions. I've been invited there on different occasions, especially when the French Minister of Foreign Affairs, Christophe Bigot, visited the country. They have been there to discuss. So it is something that has been prepared for a long time. Yes, and I can testify to some of those things. But I think we are very clear on what we are saying and have been discussing with them. This is on air, and it's the same thing that most of the time when I am invited there, I say, you know, we are in the era where if we are talking about sovereignty of countries, it should be respected in its entirety, because I have not seen or read in the constitution of the Republic of Cameroon that when we got independence, there is a clause where we're supposed to have special kind of relation with France, because in the same constitution linking Cameroon unity, we do not have a special relationship with Britain or Canada or US. And we, at this point in time when the country is passing through critical moments, do not expect that speculations should be all around the president of another country coming to another country to discuss issues of its internal politics. It is out of question. I always ask this question, Mr. Macron Emmanuel, the president of France, His Excellency, when you were having your election issues with Marine Le Pen, President Paul Biya or Cabral Libil or Camto or Jean Denis or presidents of political parties in Cameroon did not come to France to come and discuss on how who will be the next president. Because this issue of a certain country feeling the dominance in the other country, I don't know whether it is economic or political power, because economically Cameroon has all the resources, and politically we have the will, what they call political will, to say we want to function as a country. And so if he is coming, the expectation should be bilateral relationship between Cameroon and France. In 2016, when François Hollande came here, he testified to Cameroonians that France is guilty of the crimes of post-colonial war in Cameroon. And those are the things we are expecting France to atone for, not to come again and be making speculation of despair for another arrangement of unconstitutional take of power. I don't think France should be the one encouraging unconstitutional take of power when that is the cause of the collapse of French West African states that they are where they are today. If what is happening in Mali is happening is because of what IBK did with the attempt to maneuver the constitution to stay long in power. And the same thing with what Idriss Déby said before he died. In 2006, he wanted to give up power, but France encouraged him to stay. And he ended in a quagmire. And so on and so forth. So we shouldn't be encouraging unconstitutional takeovers in Africa. That is unacceptable. Even the African Charter for Human and People's Rights forbids it. African Union in its Political and Economic Council is dealing with this to discourage unconstitutional take of power. And such speculations, I also blame people who take this to be a form of encouraging and propagating the message in the media and in newspapers. We shouldn't be talking about this. Cameroon is a sovereign country. We can arrange our political issues. We have a constitution stipulating how, if there is vacancy at the presidency, we are supposed to have a new president. And we have a presidential term limit, which is 7 years for the local election expiring on February 9, 2025, and presidential October 2025. And we should be hoping that if nothing happens within this time lapse, we should be having elections in Cameroon. While we are fighting within our country to rewrite our constitution in the reflection of what we want for our country. France should stay out of African and Cameroon politics. Whatever thing they are bringing on table should not be in the name of Emmanuel Macron, the president of France now, causing the chaos that will happen to Cameroon because of whatever arrangement or backdoor deals they want to arrange with A2G. Because that will be unfair, and the younger generation of Cameroonians will not take it lightly with France in the future.
Hello, good evening to you all. I just want to applaud you all for the wonderful sacrifice you people are doing for this country. You all talk a lot of wisdom, which unfortunately falls on deaf ears. God alone will reward you all for the sacrifice in time, energy, and otherwise, beginning from you, Mr. Liu, Apostle Ambe, Dr. Ako, Mr. Kuate, and Mr. Leonard. This is our writing from Bomenda. Good evening to you. Good evening, Mr. Kum, and all the panelists in the studio. Congratulations to Apostle Ambe. It's like he read the hidden agenda of France. President coming to Cameroon, what he just said is the ultimate truth. Justin is writing from Kumbu. Good evening, Mr. Leo, Apostle Ambe, Dr. Ako, and the other panelists in the house. I suggest, since we have the hydrocarbon, instead of spending money to refine it outside the country, we should be thinking of constructing our refinery. Apostle Ambe is very correct. The French president is coming here in the interest of France, not Cameroonians. Martinez writing there. Good evening to you. Good evening to you all in the studio. The government is subsidizing petrol, but it is still collecting money for the rehabilitation of SAM till today, when it was supposed to end since 2011, and is having up to 7 value-added taxes from Sonara to the filling station. George is writing from Bomenda. Mr. Edmond Kuate, we're talking about President Macron's coming to Cameroon. Why is it making so much noise? Is it the fact that he's coming here as the first stopover in Africa after his re-election, or the fact that he has not been here during his first mandate and decides to finally come to Cameroon now?
My co-panelists brilliantly analyzed this visit in the political view, the political view. I will focus in the point of view, and I'm very afraid of what is going to happen. Sincerely, you know, I don't like to jump into the bush when there are things to, serious things, on the table. In 2016, there was an extraordinary summit in Yaoundé with all the presidents of CEMAC zone in Yaoundé. And this summit was had the presence of the IMF director. By then it was Christine Lagarde, and the minister of the French Minister of Finance and Economy, Michel Sapin. And there were two main issues on the table. IMF was telling the African president, he was giving them two alternatives. He was telling them that, okay, the external currency coverage rate of CFA is very low, which means there was no more currency for you guys to import your goods. So two things: either you people accept currency devaluation, CFA devaluation, or, and that was the last proposal, you go in for a budget adjustment. They accept a budget adjustment, and that put us into a program, 3 years program with the IMF. The program was supposed to stop at in 2019. Unfortunately, something happened along the way. That was the COVID-19. But even before the COVID-19, but I want to say that COVID-19 was a catalyzer, but we failed to respect the resolution of the program. We could not, because the contract, the agreement with the French Treasury is that we should be able to have the equivalent of 3 months of our importations in the Treasury, in the French Treasury. That is the agreement, but we failed to do that. Why? Because our exportations are very low and our importations very high. So, in 2021, the IMF decided to put us in the same program again. And just recently, the central bank, call it like that, but because, to me, it has never been a central bank, but let us call it like that. The BEAC came out with statistics of all the countries, all the CEMAC countries, I mean, what we have in the operational account, Cameroon was having 2,300 billion. Chad was having 400 billion. Equatorial Guinea was having 0. Congo was having 316 billion. Gabon, 400 billion. And Central Africa, 300 billion. Technically, there is no more possibility for all these countries to import any good. So what we're doing now, we importing under credit. That is, France is supporting it. That's what is happening now. So to me, Macron coming here is to tell our president that there's going to be a currency devaluation. To me. Because this is a critical decision. All these political affairs, the embassy can manage that. Macron doesn't need to come here for that. All this transition stuff and all this. No, Macron doesn't need to come here for that. It's, you know, it's nothing. Macron doesn't need to come here to decide whosoever how the transition is going to take place in Cameroon. All these political, in these internal affairs, these Camto people, MRC, the guys in prison. We don't need him. Macron doesn't need to come here for that. I think there is a critical decision. Remember, in 1994, when there was the first
devaluation.
Yeah, that is the same thing that happened. The president has to go to Ivory Coast. By then, this guy was very sick. He was very sick. Then the president has to go and meet him and to tell him directly that, because he was, you know, it's never easy. President will never accept this because the consequences in the social aspect are very terrible. So I think, to my own point of view, I may be wrong. I'm not a prophet. I'm not God. I'm not reading in people's mind. But based on the analysis and based on the facts and the indicators we are having at hand, I just mentioned to you guys that the managing director of SADP said the problem is that people are not longer accepting a letter of credit coming from Cameroon. Not only from Cameroon, but in the CEMAC. They need cash. And I told you why. Because there are problem out there to liquefy our letter of credit. Because there is no currency in the account. So if this problem is like this, if we cannot afford, and most of the importers will tell you, when you go to a bank now, if you are an importer, you go to the bank and sign a wire transfer. It might take you 2 weeks to get this. The bank will take 2 weeks to get it executed. Why? Because there is no currency. They will sign and then put it there. And banks are now themselves going into the black market to look for currencies to enable their transactions.
Okay.
So to me, the arrival of Macron in Cameroon is very, very terrible. To me, it's a tragedy, I'm afraid to say it.
Okay, a tragedy, Dr. Ako. You also see it as a tragedy. Could this not also be some sort of regaining some lost territories in Cameroon and other African nations, like Apostle said earlier on?
I said that in my very first hour. When you asked, I told you that first of it is to launder watch French image in Africa. France has lost a lot, and they might not think there is a second mandate. And we are saying all those we know as foreign leaders coming to Cameroon on their second mandate, it has always been very drastic. Yes, you see a lot of people pray that Donald Trump should leave the White House and not take a second mandate. We saw what the second mandate of George Bush Jr. did to the whole world. And there's always that possibility that it is time to gain for their people. And they are coming to Cameroon. I may not look at it as a strategy because there's nothing we have not seen as far as French Africans are concerned. The worst like we could see of recent is the assassination of Idris Deby Itno. And if a leader of a nation is assassinated and within 1-2 weeks, the son is installed in the presence of a foreign president, that was not there before the crisis. And the shocking truth was that after his assassination, the people they were giving names rebels disappeared, and Jamena now has peace. We have not used to fight anything again, meaning there are internally trained soldiers or terrorists that settle accounts and then disappear immediately. A lot of this we are sincerely taking that political power, when you have overdue, it is always a need to see who will take over. The French president coming to Africa, France has never liberated any African country. People should equally know that. And so he will not be coming a courtoisie visit to liberate Cameroon. Their interest is that we remain slaves. We remain submitted to them. And France, equally, people should know that they always want to have strong leaders. Strong leaders, or how can I call a powerful somebody that will continue to maintain. That you see, when Ouattara came, those who were against Babo thought it was heaven that Ivorians were going to have. And I said, I will never appreciate a book from its cover. We don't beautify books and think that that was a nice book. Book is read in the content. And you can, through all the micmaroing, what they have gone slowly, quietly, he proposes somebody who's going to stand for him, is going to step down. Out of nowhere, this young man died of COVID. And again, the same person who said, I cannot stand, said behind, there is nobody to stand again, that he is going to stand. Well, it is not all manipulations. I'm afraid that the same issue should not happen to Cameroon, but then they have all the machineries. We have given them the whole economy. We should equally know there are a lot of sectors in Cameroon military that is manned and controlled by the French. A lot of sectors in the economy that is manned and controlled by the French. A lot academically. When you get to some ministries, the people they call technocrats and expatriates from abroad still remain the French. And so they can bring us down at any time. Where Central Africa is today, nobody can tell who will be the next victim. Chad somehow was begging money and food from neighbors. So we are equally thinking that Cameroon should not even get to that level. And one of it is that absolute power corrupts absolutely. For a lot of these years, we have passed at the Unity Palace. It has not really been a better one. And if people are thinking, is there a possibility of getting new leadership? My worry is that Cameroonians should be given the chance to choose their leaders. Leaders should be those whom Cameroonians wish to be, not those that are decided upon in other foreign embassies or foreign meetings. Okay. That Africa should be kept away from what we call puppet leadership. Leaders that have the love for their nation. It is time that the French should know that the period has changed. That economic, political, or social relationship should be based on a 50-50, a win-win game. Okay. Can Cameroon equally renew to tell Macron that we have ceased from being the number 11 region of France?
Good evening, Mr. Liu. Thank you very much for your very enticing and educative program. Extending my regards to the guy in white shirt. I don't know his name. This is Yusifa Amadou writing from Yaoundé. His name is Edmond Kuate. Mr. Liu Martinez is writing from Douala. Mr. Liu, God will reward you mightily for organizing such an intelligent program. I've learned a lot from it today. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Liu and your panelists. It surprises me that with this high level of bankruptcy the state of Cameroon is going through, they still have the guts to host such high-level personality. Can't they use the money to subsidize the high cost of food the citizens can't swallow? Is Macron himself not afraid that he may come and lacks fuel for his aircraft to go back? Enoko is writing from Bamenda. Good evening. Cameroon is a new colonial state. Therefore, I buy the ideas of Apostle Ambe about the coming of President Macron to consolidate ties with our beloved country. When shall this country be strong to stand on her own? Oh God, help us. Our Fuacom in one of his songs says, we need the second independence. A Chanji writing from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Liu and panelists. There is no Western world country that would think anything good about Africa. Cameroon is not left out. The little I know for my 30 years plus as a Cameroonian, France is the least country that can sincerely help Cameroon. Please let our government work with other Cameroonians of goodwill to build this our beloved country. Let love lead. Again, dear Sylvester is writing from Yaoundé. Apostle Ambe, Valentine, Ngwa. You say we should not expect much from the visit. Now, political leaders are going to be received. Don't you think they are going to be prepared for what is coming ahead?
Yes, Mr. Leo, Cameroon already is sitting on a time bomb with the pressure from all political leaders and stakeholders in the country. I think Macron is coming to strike a balance with the rest of the political leaders that can cause chaos in the country. As a matter of fact, Libi has a certain level of followership. John Fundi has a level of followership. Equally, Kamto has a level of followership. And because of that, he has to call them, sit them down, and make them understand their own share of the bargain. So that when transition is taking place, these guys are the only person that can cause people to enter into the streets and bring total chaos everywhere in the country. But because of the serenity they want in the future and that the position of France should not be jeopardized, they are definitely going to call the political stakeholders that are a threat to the country. Because if a person like me, John Fundi, hits his hand tomorrow on the floor, people will enter the street. If Kamto does that or Cavalli does that, people will enter the street. Because they have labored from in the political terrain of this country for a very long time. And they cannot just sit and watch some young man from some angle come and occupy something that they have lost lives for, wasted their years for, sacrificed for. I mean, let go so many things for. A person like Fundi sacrificed politically for this country. I think presidential office should be given to him as a reward. Kamto equally has served in the country. Kavalibi also as a young man, he too has come up and is contributing forcefully. And you cannot just come and see these people who are persons qualified enough to rule the country and then you sideline them to bring up a young man. I think they are being called into the closet to pacify them and make them understand their own share of the national cake so that they will not react tomorrow.
Yeah, though you said the war in the Northwest and Southwest region may not actually be raging like it did in 2016 or 2018,
yes.
And you do not expect him to say anything, but we've seen consistently persons indexing France for having a strong influence on Cameroon to be able to do something, do more to force both sides to stop the war.
Isalio, if I'm given an opportunity to ask for France's help now, I will not ask.
Okay.
When I needed them most, they did not come. We've lost so many persons, both from the military, innocent people, and the Ambe angle, that they were supposed to have come to save those souls. What are they coming to do? To sell after the market? Bring in solution after problem? They are not needed.
Okay. They are not needed, according to Apostle Ambe, Valentine, Ngwa. Lista Montana writing from Yaoundé says, good evening, Mr. Liu and the panelists. Thanks for your educative program. Lista, extend our greetings to the family, especially your mother out there in Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I really enjoy your program. Greetings to Dr. Ako John. It's Mr. Ndiwa Kingsley watching live from Libreville in Gabon. Good evening, crew on board. Macron's coming to Cameroon is tantamount to political upheaval. Pan-Africans should, by my view, okay. Hilary Punti Wanshambi writing from Banja subdivision. Good evening, Mr. Elio. I like your program and may God bless all the panelists. Njong is writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you, Njong. But Emmanuel Macron, French president, could also is said to be coming to lobby for better treatment or opportunities for French companies. We understand what happened with Bolloré at the Douala port.
Well, they have already had the grip of the leader and the the person in power for a very long time. I don't think he's coming to lobby. He's reassuring.
Okay.
If the president of the Republic wanted to take bold step, it's not in 2022 that Macron will leave here, France, Paris, Élysée to come to Etoudy and then lobby. I think Christophe Guillou, the ambassador, has been doing that already. We're always seeing him at the presidency, all those stuffs. He's always there. I think what he's coming to do is more strategic. Like my co-panelist said, it's more strategic and it's something really, really important, which has to do with power and economy. Yeah, to ensure the continuity of the flow of our wealth into their shores, where they irrigate the wealth of Cameroon and the other countries still in their grip to their treasury, and to ensure that as Cameroon is at the brink of transition to the next person, they should have influence with that next person, constitutionally or unconstitutionally. That's why you see the guys are smart enough to make it somehow inclusive by contacting even people who see things in the other way. So notwithstanding, we are watching the political scene, we are looking at how things are unfolding, we are hoping that they understand the feeling of the people of Cameroon, because there is a certain feeling that when people have at a particular time and you undermine it, you might be shocked as to what you will get, thinking that you have everything under control. Sometimes explosions or coercion exist in politics, governance, diplomacy, because people underestimated the feeling of the people, where they have bear it to a certain extent, to the elastic limit, especially with the multiple crises. Anglophone crises have exhausted people, the economic crisis, inflation, Boko Haram crisis, bandits in the east. Cameroon is having a lot of war, physically and psychologically, that if President Emmanuel Macron is coming to do whatsoever, he should take into cognizance the population. He might not have access to all the base, the local population, but let him try as much as possible not to forge too much with the arguments that will benefit France to the disinterest or disservice of Cameroonians, because this might backfire very, very soon, not very long. You know, we are in an emancipated society, we are in the internet and the Android world, we are in the technological society, and even the approach and model of diplomacy have changed. Diplomacy is no more classical, where it is the ambassador that's been assigned by the government or somebody that is known to be a state that is only a diplomat. Okay. It is all about who is influencing stakes. And nowadays, even non-governmental organizations and individuals are influencing stakes. Okay. Ito is doing a lot, and you see his influence is not necessarily an ambassador for Cameroon, but as an individual having international and cultural impact, sport impact, it influences stakes. So they have to take all that into consideration, not to usher Cameroon into any quagmire for a problem that we might find it difficult to solve.
Okay. Good evening, sir. Really appreciate you people for what you people are doing. I hope someday change will come. Thanks, you people, very much. Keep up the good work. God bless you all, sir. I'm always blessed listening to this program. Thanks very much. Prosper is writing from Amanda, Mr. Edmond Kuate. What are we going to be observing when President Emmanuel Macron comes to Cameroon? Are we going to see it as a a diplomatic victory for Cameroon? The fact that he's chosen to come to Cameroon first after his recent re-election. Are we going to see a master subordinate relationship? Oh, he's coming here as a president of a sovereign state visiting another sovereign state.
Depends from which angle you analyze the visit, the arrival of Macron. I mean, if you are in the political, if you are in the CPDM party, then you will call it a victory, a diplomatic victory, because, during the first mandate of Macron, people were saying that the relationship in between Macron and President Biya was not that good, and that there was kind of not hatred, but there was kind of misunderstanding between the two guys. So they said that it's like Macron was not very, he was not in good term with Biya. So that's what other things. But now, if you are in the other party, then you will say that, well, now the master is coming to, to give instruction to his employee, to his servant, or something like that. So it depends from which angle you analyze the situation. But at the end of the day, Cameroon is in trouble. Either you are in the CPDM party or in the opposition party. We are the one to suffer, to pay the price of whatsoever he's coming to do here. We will be the one to pay the price. It doesn't matter whether you're in this party or that party or whatsoever. No, we will pay the price. Even if we want to analyze the thing in the a political perspective, let's say he's coming here to make decision for the transition, and then maybe decide to appoint somebody it's still for their interest. It's not for our interest. You see, at the end of the day, we have nothing to say. Our word, it doesn't matter. So that's it. So all this, at the end of the day, who is going to benefit what? What are Cameroonians are going to benefit from this visit? That's what really matters. What are Cameroonians, the citizens, the normal citizens, what is he going to benefit from this visit of Mr. Macron? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And trust me, nothing. The only reason why Mr. Macron is coming here is to make sure he maintain grips on France or on our resources. He's coming here to make sure he preserve the interest of France. He's not coming here for the well-being of Cameroonians at all. No, he's coming here to make sure he preserve and safeguard the interest of his country. So that's what matters at the end of the day. And should we keep on accepting this? Yeah. Because the fact that we're discussing he is coming here to do this is as if we agree. It's as if we agree to us. It is normal.
That's what I don't even want.
And he's coming here to discuss with Kamto, Cabral, and Frundi, and to tell them, hey guys, look, don't open your mouth because this is what I've decided to do. First of all, why should is it normal for him to even to meet them? Is it normal? Why? Why should he interfere in our internal politics? Why? That is the reason I asked somebody. Mr. Macron is coming here and he's going to meet with most of these political leaders. What are they going to discuss?
On behalf of who?
Yeah, maybe they're going to be telling him what is not
have
doing right.
You ever heard?
We all
Macron and France no responsibility or accountability
question
on
for
internal
you.
Politics.
Question for you, Leo.
No.
For the past 40 years that Mr. Biya has been in power in Cameroon, and only God knows the number of visits he has paid to France. Can you tell me the number of times he has met with the political leaders in France to discuss what with them?
Okay.
Come on, we should not accept this type of...
These are questions that are going to be answered after he has come and gone, because I'm sure these political leaders, if they are sincere, they're going to render accounts to Cameroonians.
They should not even meet him in the first place.
Okay, let's pray.
It's the mandate of, I believe President Paul Biya has had a lot of meetings. It doesn't limit the visit of any other presidents of who he or she wishes to meet in his agenda. Cameroon president does that also when he's abroad, meeting Cameroonians, meeting other partners, meeting investors, and you cannot limit their area of exchange.
Okay,
no, we are talking in the context of a constitutional arrangement, which has been the case with France in Africa. We are not talking otherwise.
There is one thing we should know, and until you and I are ready to liberate ourselves, it will not come by propaganda here. We had agreements called colonial agreements.
No, but those are things
that is what I'm saying. Okay. It does not come from a public declaration.
It's not public declaration. It is we are
the will of the people
and sensitization
until we are ready.
Because we have to start telling the people that Cameroonians are listening to us.
When do you think we are going to be ready?
When are we going to be ready?
When you are ready, we will not talk this same language. It is fair.
Cameroonians need to know that it is not the right way to go. Because we should not say they have been colonial. it was by this same unconstitutional arrangement that Mali said, okay, the military said, okay, this has to stop. This is rubbish. We cannot accept this any further. And what is happening? They cut ties. But if we keep saying that
let's assume
this
that,
will never,
let's assume that it's just
we had a colonial tie, France is super powerful. No.
Let's assume that it's just a friendly visit by another head of state to Cameroon. We want
then that should be fine.
Yes, thank you to all of you guys who made it to the program today, and all of you who took time off to watch this edition of the program. Doctor, thank you for coming.
The pleasure is mine, always, especially French-Cameroon relationship. We will always come to share in what we have, but I hope Africa will one day rise again.
Okay, Apostle Ambe, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Lua. It's always a joy to be here.
Okay, and also to you, Fabrice, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leo, for inviting me. I want to greet National President of PAP, John Dennis Tabe, watching live in Yaoundé, and Dr. Wabi Wilson watching in Boya, and all my friends watching all around the country. I appreciate you guys for always supporting by watching our program and sending your remarks. It is appreciated. Thank you guys very much. Let's keep an eye on the government, an eye on what they are planning to do. The country belongs to us and not to everybody, and not to some few people. Thank you very much.
Okay,
the people first.
Okay, Edmond, thank you for coming.
Pleasure is mine, Leo. It was a pleasure being here again today.
You have been away for a very long time, Edmond.
Oh, sure, I've been away for a very long time. You know, my program is a bit complicated, and I travel a lot. But whenever I have a bit of time to be here, you know, I will be very honored to be here. Okay,
we thank you, Desmond and Eli, for producing the program. Tabit and Brian supervising the work we do. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.